All right, so today we're really diving deep, like really deep into the life and career of Jeff Bezos.
Sounds exciting. Should be fascinating.
Right. You mentioned wanting to, get up to speed fast,
Ah,
but also really thoroughly.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of like our specialty here.
Yeah, I think we do that well. Synthesizing a lot of information, pulling out the really interesting stuff, the stuff you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Exactly. And with Bezos, there's no shortage of material. I mean, where do you even begin with someone like him?
Well, I think, we've got to start at the beginning, right? His origins. Before Amazon, before the billions, before Blue Origin.
Okay, yeah, back to the very beginning. So Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen, born January 12, 1964, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Fun fact, his parents were super young. Like his mom was only 17.
Wow, really?
Yeah, 17, and his dad was 19.
Yeah, that's young. Definitely not the typical start.
No, not at all. And unfortunately, things were kind of rocky early on. Ted, his father, struggled with some things, alcohol, finances.
Ah, I see.
And it led to, divorce. When Jeff was just a baby, 17 months old.
I mean, those early years, even if you don't consciously remember them, they shape you, right?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of psychologists say that. Even if we don't have specific memories,
Yeah.
it still impacts who we become.
Resilience, drive, maybe even some insecurity. It all gets mixed in there.
So then a pretty big shift. His mom, Jacqueline, marries Miguel Mike Bezos in 68.
Okay, so a new father figure enters the picture.
Exactly. And Mike adopts Jeff, hence the last name we all know now, Bezos.
So Jeff Bezos isn't actually his original name.
Nope. Jorgensen. It's pretty wild to think about, like, how different would things have been if he kept that name?
Who knows? Anyway, so Mike Bezos is what?
An engineer.
With Exxon.
Classic.
Yeah, they moved to Houston for his work.
Okay, Texas. So we're starting to get some of those, like, classic origin story pieces.
Stability, family, a solid background. And I think it's interesting, too, because he also spent summers on his maternal grandfather's ranch in Cotulla, Texas. Oh, so that's where the ranch connection comes from.
Yeah, Lawrence Preston geese. Bezos ended up buying the ranch later and expanded it significantly.
Wow. So, really close to his grandfather?
It seems that way, yeah. And even as a kid, there were signs, right, of the future Bezos.
You mean like the business genius stuff?
Well, not business exactly. More like just a fascination with how things work. A knack for, tinkering.
Okay, so what kind of stuff?
Well, apparently he rigged an electric alarm to keep his siblings out of his room.
Oh, wow. So not just, putting a chair against the door, actually engineering a solution.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so interesting. Like, at that age, most kids, they just yell or whine or whatever.
Yeah.
He built something, solved the problem.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, so on to high school. Miami Palmetto High School.
Miami.
Yeah.
And you know what else? He worked at McDonald's.
No way. Really?
Yeah. Short order cook during the breakfast shift.
Like flipping burgers, Bezos.
Flipping burgers, making coffee, the whole deal. It's like such a classic American experience.
Yeah. Right. So relatable. You wouldn't think the richest man in the world at one point was doing that same early morning grind.
Exactly. And I think there's something in that, learning about work ethic, dealing with customers, even if it's just I want my Egg McMuffin.
It all adds up. Okay, but clearly he was also a super smart kid.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Student science training program at the University of Florida. Then valedictorian, National Merit Scholar, Silver Knight Award. The whole package.
All by 82. So yeah, clearly on a path to, great things. But did anyone know how great? World-changing great.
Well, his valedictorian speech, pretty interesting in hindsight.
Oh, yeah. What'd he say?
He talked about colonizing space, turning Earth into a giant national park.
Wow. I mean, it sounds kind of idealistic for an 18-year-old, but, that's Blue Origin.
Right. It wasn't just some random thought. It was a vision that, he's spending billions to make happen.
Okay, that's wild. So high school, check. Next stop, Princeton.
Princeton, yep. And here's where we get another interesting twist. So he starts as a physics major.
Makes sense. Super smart guy. Right.
Totally. But then he switches to electrical engineering and computer science.
Oh, really? Why did it change?
It's actually kind of funny. He said a classmate was just better at math.
Wow. So he just, admitted defeat.
Well, not defeat. More like he recognized his strengths and saw the potential in this new field.
Pragmatic, Bezos being Bezos.
Right, okay, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
But this other thing, this is where the future's going.
And, he wasn't wrong. But tell me, any other notable stuff from Princeton?
Oh, yeah. He was in this thing called the Quadrangle Club, one of those
Yeah.
like exclusive eating clubs.
Ah, so networking early.
I guess so, yeah. But also, even more telling, president of the Students for the Exploration and Development of Space.
SEDS. Yeah, they're still around, I think.
Yep. So the space thing, not going away.
Mhm.
It's like a thread through his whole life.
Okay, so we've got high school Bezos, college Bezos, all very impressive. What about after Princeton? What's the first real job?
So this is where it gets interesting. He had all these offers, right? Intel, Bell Labs, big companies.
Yeah, makes sense. Top of his class at Princeton.
But he goes with this startup, Fattel.
Fattel, what did they do?
It was a fintech company. So basically, they were using tech to disrupt finance, building this network for international trade.
Huh. So already, like, seeing the potential of tech to change things.
Yeah, and he rises through the ranks super fast, head of development, then director of customer service.
Always customer focused, even back then.
Right. But then it's like, okay, he's got to test the waters of Wall Street. So he moves to Bankers Trust, product manager there.
Okay, so climbing the corporate ladder.
And then D.E. Shaw, a hedge fund.
Now we're talking big money, high stakes.
Yep. 1990 he joins. By 30, senior vice president.
I mean, that's like unheard of, that kind of trajectory.
Yeah, he was clearly brilliant, driven. But then there's this moment, spring of 94,
What?
the internet.
The internet.
It was growing like crazy, 2,300% per year. Web usage just exploding.
Okay, so he sees the potential like everyone else at the time, right?
Maybe. But he does something. Quits D.E. Shaw, packs up with Mackenzie, and it all starts like literally on a road trip.
This is the Amazon story, right?
Yeah. Driving from New York City to Seattle, writing the business plan in the car, classic entrepreneur stuff.
July 5th, 1994, they launch a rented garage in Bellevue, Washington.
The birthplace of Amazon. And Mackenzie, she wasn't just like moral support. She was vital.
Yeah, I've read about that. Handling finances, packing books, all of it.
Right. A true partner. And it's funny, they almost didn't even launch in Washington.
Oh, where else were they thinking?
An Indian reservation near San Francisco.
Interesting. Why?
Tax benefits. Bezos was always thinking ahead.
Strategic, for sure. Even the name Amazon, it wasn't the original choice, was it?
Nope. First it was Cadabra, like abracadabra.
I kind of see it, but Amazon is definitely more powerful, more evocative.
Right. The world's biggest river. A sense of scale. And it also helped with like being listed first alphabetically, back when that really mattered online.
Clever. So how do they even get this thing off the ground financially?
Well, Bezos' parents invest. About $300,000 estimated.
A big leap of faith.
Huge. And he was upfront with other investors. Like, hey, there's a 70% chance this fails.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah, total transparency. But also, a belief in the idea. And even then, it's important to remember, they always planned to go beyond books.
Yeah, it was never just about books. It was about building something bigger, a different way to shop.
3 years later, IPO, 1997, Amazon goes public.
That's incredibly fast.
Right. And people were skeptical. Like,
Yeah.
these guys selling books online, will it even last?
Up against like Barnes & Noble, Borders, the big dogs.
But Bezos kept saying it's about the internet. It's about growth, about the future. And, well, he was right.
And they started expanding music, video.
By 98, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, what can we sell online?
It's an everything store. It really became that.
And they were aggressive, buying up smaller competitors. Pets.com, Cosmo.com. Some of those, flinged out after the dot-com bubble burst.
It was a wild time. So much money flowing in, so much risk.
And Amazon was right in the thick of it. By 2000, they were borrowing billions from banks. Cash was tight.
A lot of pressure. But then they launched AWS, Amazon Web Services.
2002, cloud computing, a game changer.
I mean, most people back then, they didn't even know what cloud computing was.
Right, but Bezos saw the potential to democratize technology, give everyone access to computing power.
It's the backbone of so much today. It's wild.
And they had to make tough decisions, closing distribution centers, laying off workers.
But early 2000s were rough for a lot of tech companies. The bubble burst.
Yeah, but Amazon, they bounced back. 2003, they were profitable again.
That's the thing about Bezos and Amazon. It's like they just keep going.
And innovating. The Kindle, November 2007, changed how we read.
A huge risk, but it paid off.
Big time. And then 2013, they get this massive contract with the CIA for AWS.
$600 million. That's when people really started paying attention.
Like, okay, this cloud thing, it's not just a gimmick. It's the future.
And the same year, they become the biggest online retailer in the world.
Officially. No one can deny it anymore.
And Bezos, well, he's the richest man on the planet. Multiple times over.
The richest man in modern history, according to some.
It's just staggering amounts of wealth.
And then a big change. July 2021. He steps down as CEO.
Really? I thought he'd be there forever.
Everyone did. But he becomes executive chairman. Andy Jassy takes over.
So why the change?
He said he wanted to focus on other things. Day One Fund, Bezos Earth Fund, Blue Origin, The Washington Post.
So many ventures. It's like one lifetime isn't enough for this guy.
Right. And then in February of 24, he starts selling off huge chunks of Amazon stock. Billions of dollars worth.
Wow. Cashing out.
Maybe partially, but also, funding other things. And by December 24, he says he's spending 95% of his time on AI, artificial intelligence.
So that's the next big bet.
Seems that way. Even though he's not CEO anymore, he's still shaping Amazon's future.
Okay, let's talk about some of those other things. Blue Origin, for example. I mean, that's been going on for a while now, right?
Since 2000.
Yeah.
Long before it was like a trendy thing for billionaires to do.
Right. So what's the goal? Just space tourism?
I mean, that's part of it. But it's bigger than that. Bezos has talked about like humanity becoming a spacefaring civilization.
Wow.
Reducing the cost of space travel, making it safer. Eventually, maybe even, moving heavy industry off Earth to protect the environment.
Ambitious, to say the least.
Understatement of the year. And he's putting his money where his mouth is, selling $1 billion of Amazon stock every year to fund Blue Origin.
Okay, that's serious commitment.
Yeah, and they've made real progress. New Shepard, their suborbital vehicle, went to space in 2015, landed back on Earth.
I remember seeing that. Pretty incredible.
And then in July 2021, he goes up himself with his brother Mark.
Oh, yeah. The billionaire space race?
It was a big deal. But for Bezos, I think it was more than that. It was like fulfilling a childhood dream.
And he's actually selling tickets now.
Yeah, like $200,000 to $300,000 a pop. Space tourism for the, they're very wealthy.
Okay, so space. Check. What about the Washington Post? That was a bit out of left field, wasn't it?
Totally. 2013, buys it for $250 million, cash. Apparently, Don Graham suggested it to him.
Interesting. So what was the plan?
Turn it into like a modern media company, digitally focused. He actually got rid of the paywall for a while for subscribers of some local papers.
Interesting. So a believer in free access to information.
Maybe. But also, a way to grow readership. And it worked. By 2016, they were profitable again.
But then there were all those controversies, right?
Yeah, accusations of him influencing content, blocking endorsements, changing editorial direction. A lot of people weren't happy about it. Staff, readers.
Yeah, I remember that. Accusations of favoring free markets and personal liberties. Some people even called it a Bezos-Trump alliance emerging.
Right. And then there's Bezos Expeditions, his venture capital firm.
That's how he got in early on Google, right?
Yep. 1998, $250,000 investment. Worth billions now.
Wow. That's the dream, right?
Yeah. But he's invested in other stuff too. Biotech, healthcare. And he uses it for philanthropy as well.
So a way to diversify his impact.
Exactly. And then there's Altos Labs.
Altos Labs, that's the longevity research company, right?
Yep. Founded in 2021, cellular reprogramming. Basically trying to figure out how to reverse aging.
Sounds pretty sci-fi.
It does, yeah. But he's serious. They launched with $3 billion in funding, recruited some of the top scientists in the world.
Okay, so Bezos is betting on a longer lifespan for everyone.
Maybe. Or maybe just for himself. Who knows? But let's talk about him as a leader, right? His style. Early on, he got this reputation for being, intense.
Intense? How so?
Super focused on Amazon. Maybe not so much on, public charity or anything. Very data-driven.
Yeah, I've heard about that, talking in lists kind of guy.
In his management style. Demanding, hyper-competitive, some would even say ruthless.
So the classic, hard-driving CEO, but then he kind of changed his image, didn't he?
Yeah, in the 2010s. Started dressing better, working out, spending more money.
Like a personal transformation that mirrored Amazon's own rise.
Right, and it kind of cemented this image of him as, this dominant figure, powerful.
And there's all that philosophy stuff, right? The day one mentality.
Yeah, always acting like it's the first day of the company. Staying hungry.
And
his regret minimization framework.
Thinking about what he'd regret not doing. Interesting.
And then there's the get big fast mantra.
Market dominance. Bezos style.
He also talks about work-life harmony instead of balance.
So acknowledging that they're intertwined, can't really separate them.
And the famous two-pizza rule. Keep meetings small enough to be fed by 2 pizzas.
So no giant bureaucratic meetings.
Right. And he asks 3 key questions when hiring.
Curious. What are they?
Do you admire this person? Will they raise the bar? And do they have the potential to be an exemplar? So not just skills, but like character.
Thinking long term. Building a specific kind of culture.
And here's a weird one. He requires 6-page narrative memos instead of PowerPoint presentations.
Wow, really?
Yeah, for high-level decisions. He wants people to actually think things through, write it out.
I can see the logic there.
And every year, he writes these letters to shareholders, laying out his philosophy, customer obsession, risk-taking, building the right team.
So he's a communicator, even if it's not always in the traditional way.
And get this, he still has a public email address, jeff@amazon.com, for customer feedback.
I bet he doesn't read those personally.
Probably not, but it's a symbolic gesture, right?
Okay.
Like, I'm accessible. I care what you think.
Okay, so let's talk awards and recognition. Times Person of the Year.
1999, honorary doctorate from Carnegie Mellon, the Heinlein Prize for space stuff. The list goes on and on.
And the wealth. It's just mind-boggling. Became a millionaire after the IPO.
Then a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, then a centibillionaire. The first one.
The scale of it is hard to even comprehend. And he owns so much real estate, has that giant super yacht.
But of course, with great wealth comes great scrutiny.
Yeah, people love to criticize billionaires.
And there have been legitimate criticisms of Amazon's work culture. Accusations of treating employees poorly, creating this pressure cooker environment.
And the whole Washington Post thing, a lot of people see that as a conflict of interest, using his influence to shape the narrative.
Some even call him an oligarch because of how much power he has. And then there's that whole Saudi hacking thing.
Oh, yeah, that was crazy. The claim that his phone was hacked by the Saudis because of the Washington Post reporting on Jamal Khashoggi's murder.
Pretty wild stuff. And then, of course, his personal life. Married Mackenzie Tuttle in 93.
They were together a long time.
Yeah. Divorced in 2019. 4 kids.
High-profile divorce, splitting up billions of dollars.
Yeah. And now he's with Lauren Sanchez.
And the philanthropy, right? He's definitely stepped that up in recent years.
The Day One Fund. Bezos Earth Fund. Donating to all kinds of causes. Climate change, homelessness, education. Even gave $100 million each to Van Jones and Jose Andres.
That's his Courage and Civility Award.
And then there's Bezos Academy. Free preschools for low-income families.
So, trying to make a difference in a lot of different areas.
It's almost like he's trying to, atone for his sins. Or maybe just, secure his legacy.
It's hard to know what's going on in his head.
So we've covered a lot. Early life, Amazon, Blue Origin, the Washington Post, philanthropy. It's a pretty incredible story.
A lot of ups and downs, successes and controversies.
And it's not over yet. I mean, what do you think? What will be his most enduring legacy?
That's the big question, right? Is it Amazon, space travel, or something else entirely?
And how will AI, artificial intelligence, shape that legacy? It's something to think about, a lot to think about.
Yeah, Bezos is a complex figure, no easy answers.
And that's what makes him so fascinating.
Exactly.